They say the blood moon doesn't just rise, it awakens. Every century, when the sky turns red and the air hums with an ancient pulse, a single chance is granted, a promise whispered under the crimson light that can twist the threads of fate itself. But promises under the blood moon come at a price. In a forgotten village nestled deep within a forest where the trees whisper secrets, lived a girl named Elara. Her mother had warned her, never step into the woods on the night of the blood moon, for the spirits who dwell there can hear your every word, and they never forget a promise. But Elara's heart was heavy. Her brother, Kael, had fallen ill, and the doctors spoke of no cure. In her desperation, she wandered into the forest, the red glow casting strange shadows on her path. Under the blood moon, she found the veil tree, ancient and twisted, its bark pulsing like a living heart. A figure stood there, tall, cloaked in tattered robes, its face hidden beneath a porcelain mask cracked with age. "I know why you've come," the figure rasped. Its voice was soft yet carried the weight of countless centuries. Elara's voice trembled as she spoke. "I'll do anything, just save my brother." The figure tilted its head. "Then say it. Under the blood moon, your promise will bind you." Elara whispered, "I promise. I'll give up my freedom if you save him. I'll pay any price." The figure smiled. A crack appeared in the mask. The air grew still, and the forest seemed to listen. "Your promise is heard. Your fate is sealed. On the night of the next blood moon, you will return, and the price will be taken." Elara's brother awoke the next morning, fully healed. But as the years passed, the memory of that night faded, until the red moon rose again, casting its ominous glow across the sky. And Elara remembered the promise she had made. The village had changed in the years since Elara made her vow under the blood moon, but the night air held the same heavy silence, thick, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Elara stood at the edge of the forest, her heart pounding as the sky burned crimson once more. Kael, now strong and healthy, was unaware of the dark promise that loomed over his sister. "Don't go back," Kael pleaded when he saw her standing by the tree line. "Whatever you think you owe, it's not worth it." But Elara knew better. The figure in the forest had whispered to her dreams. "When the blood moon rises again, you will return. And the debt will be claimed." As the wind stirred, carrying with it the scent of moss and old earth, the veil between worlds began to thin. The veil tree shimmered faintly in the distance, pulsing like a living thing. Elara stepped forward. The trees shifted, as if bending toward her, their branches reaching out like fingers. A chill ran down her spine. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the shadows, low and smooth, yet carrying the weight of something ancient. "Elara, do you remember what you promised?" She turned. The masked figure was waiting beneath the tree, its porcelain face now covered in new cracks, as though it had aged in the time between moons. "I remember," Elara whispered, her voice catching in her throat. The figure tilted its head, the mask creaking like old bone. "Then the time has come. Will you fulfill your promise, or will you run?" Elara felt the pull of the forest, the weight of her vow. Her fingers trembled. Her pulse raced. The blood moon's glow bathed her in red light, and she knew, there was no turning back. As she took a step forward, she whispered a question to the wind. "What price must I pay?" The figure's answer was a chilling murmur that seemed to seep into the roots of the trees themselves. "Your freedom, or another's life." And as the moon hung heavy above, Elara realized the terrible truth: the promise could be fulfilled, but at a cost far greater than she ever imagined. Elara's breath caught in her throat. The air seemed thinner, the trees pressing in like silent witnesses to her fate. The masked figure stood unmoving, its cracked porcelain face catching the glow of the blood moon. "Your freedom, or another's life," it repeated, voice like the rustle of dry leaves. Elara's mind raced. Could she truly sacrifice her freedom? Could she let herself be taken by this ancient being? And if not, who would pay the price? Her thoughts turned to Kael, her brother, who was alive because of her promise. The weight of it all crushed her chest. Elara began, but the figure raised a single, gloved finger, silencing her. "You have until the moon fades," it whispered. "Choose wisely. The blood moon listens, and it waits." The forest shifted. The ground beneath her feet felt less solid, as if reality itself were growing thin. The whispers of the trees grew louder, snaking through her mind. "Elara," they seemed to call. "Elara, choose." Her gaze lifted to the blood moon, its light seemed almost alive, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. And then, from the shadows, another figure emerged. It was a young man, his clothes ragged, his eyes hollow. He looked barely older than Elara, yet his presence was strange, unreal. "You're not the first," he murmured, his voice distant, as if echoing from another time. "I was once like you. I made my promise. And when my night came, I chose my own freedom. Someone else paid the price." Elara's breath shivered. "What happened to them?" The young man's gaze darkened, and his voice dropped to a whisper. "They never saw the sun again." He turned, vanishing into the trees like a wisp of smoke. Elara stood frozen, the weight of her promise crashing down upon her. The masked figure spoke again, its voice cutting through the night like a cold blade. "Time is slipping, Elara. Choose." And as the blood moon seemed to burn brighter, Elara realized the terrible truth: no matter what she chose, a life would be taken. But would it be her own, or someone else's? The blood moon's glow seemed to seep into Elara's skin, filling her veins with an otherworldly heat. The masked figure remained still, watching, waiting. "Elara," it murmured again, the voice curling like smoke around her name. "Time slips. The moon fades. Your choice draws near." The forest seemed alive, leaves whispering in a language she couldn't understand, branches twitching, roots shifting beneath her feet. Elara's heart pounded as she whispered, "Is there no other way?" A faint sound stirred behind her, a voice she knew all too well. "Elara." She spun around. It was Kael, her brother, standing at the edge of the trees, worry etched across his face. "Why are you here?" Elara cried, fear gripping her throat. "I followed you. I couldn't let you go alone." The masked figure's voice coiled between them like a serpent. "Ah, the boy who lives by your promise." Kael's eyes darted toward the figure, his face paling. "What is that?" he whispered. Elara's voice shook. "It's the one who saved you." "But she swallowed hard. "I owe a price." The figure's head tilted, and it slowly extended its hand, gloved in shadows. "The price can be paid, now." Kael stepped forward. "Take me, then. If Elara owes a debt, I'll pay it." The figure let out a soft, chilling laugh, like bones snapping in the dark. "Noble, but foolish. Only she can choose." Elara's hands trembled. The blood moon pulsed above, growing dimmer. Time was slipping. Then the figure spoke again, its voice softer, almost coaxing. "Say the words, Elara. Speak your promise, and seal your fate." Elara's lips parted, the words forming in her throat, but just as she was about to speak, something changed. The veil tree behind the figure shuddered violently, its bark splitting open to reveal a glowing red core, like a living heart. Whispers poured out, louder, stronger. The figure turned sharply, its mask tilting in alarm. And in that moment, Elara felt it, a shift in the balance. This promise wasn't just a deal, it was part of something far older, far darker than she had realized. And maybe, just maybe, there was a way to break the cycle. But she would have to face the truth buried in the heart of the forest, and risk everything. The blood moon pulsed once more, dimming slightly. And Elara knew, the final choice would not wait for long. Elara's breath trembled in her chest. The veil tree groaned, its bark splitting wider, exposing the pulsing red heart at its core. From within, faint shapes began to emerge, figures trapped inside, their faces frozen in expressions of fear, sorrow, or rage. The masked figure seemed to recoil slightly, its head tilting as if hearing a distant call. Elara, it rasped, but now its voice sounded weaker, less certain, as if something had disturbed its ancient dominion. The price must be paid. No one escapes the blood moon's promise. But Elara's gaze stayed fixed on the figures within the tree. One face, in particular, caught her breath, a woman with dark hair and eyes like hers, a faint silver locket resting on her chest. Her mother. Elara and Kael's voice broke through the haze, desperate and strained. "What's happening?" "I don't know," she whispered. But in her heart, she felt something click, as if the forest had whispered a hidden truth, one she hadn't been meant to hear. The veil tree wasn't just a vessel of power. It was a prison. A cage for those who had made their promises, and failed to pay their price. The figures within began to stir, their whispers growing louder, weaving into a chant that seemed to pulse with the blood moon's glow. Break the cycle. Free the bound. Break the cycle. Free the bound. Elara's hands trembled as she stepped closer to the tree. The masked figure hissed, its voice sharp like a blade. "Do not touch it." But the pull was too strong. She reached out, her fingertips brushing the rough bark, when a searing pain lanced through her arm, images flooding her mind. Visions of others before her, men, women, even children, each standing under the blood moon, each making a promise, each bound by it, and each one ending here, trapped within the veil tree, their souls feeding the cycle. Elara's breath caught. The truth crashed down on her like thunder. The masked figure wasn't a savior. It was the keeper of the cycle, feeding on promises, binding souls to the tree, generation after generation. And she was next. Unless she broke the chain. But how? The blood moon pulsed again, brighter, hotter, almost blinding. The figure raised its hands, its voice thundering across the forest. Enough. The promise must be kept. Elara felt the weight of it all pressing in, the curse, the blood moon's call, the veil tree's hunger. Her choice was no longer just about her freedom or her brother's life. It was about ending the cycle, or becoming part of it forever. And as the blood moon's light began to flicker, time running out, Elara whispered to herself. "I won't be a prisoner." Elara's fingers burned where they had touched the veil tree, the images still seared into her mind. Faces twisted in torment, voices crying out, promises whispered and broken. She turned to the masked figure, anger flaring in her chest. "You've trapped them, all of them. You're not a savior, you're a thief of souls." The figure stood perfectly still for a heartbeat, then, crack, the mask split further, a jagged crack racing down its porcelain surface. "You see, too much," it hissed, voice lower now, rougher, like wind tearing through dry leaves. The mask shattered, falling away in pieces to reveal nothing. Where a face should have been, there was only a swirling void, a hollow darkness that seemed to twist the air around it. Kael gasped behind Elara, stumbling back. What is that? The figure's voice was everywhere and nowhere, echoing from the trees, the earth, the very air. I am the keeper, the binding spirit, the collector of oaths. I am what remains when promises rot. I feed the veil tree, and the veil tree feeds me. Elara's mind spun. This wasn't just a trickster spirit, it was an ancient force, bound to the blood moon itself. The keeper raised an arm, shadows swirling around its hand like smoke. The time has come. Choose, Elara. Your freedom, or another's life. The weight of the decision crashed down on her once more. Her eyes darted to Kael, alive because of her promise, but now marked for the cycle if she chose to walk free. The whispers from the veil tree grew louder, almost frantic. Break the cycle, find the root, find the root. Elara's gaze locked on the heart of the tree, the pulsing red core deep within. Was that the key? The root of the keeper's power. But how could she reach it? The keeper's voice sharpened. Choose, or I will choose for you. The blood moon's light pulsed, each beat faster, stronger, a countdown in the sky. Elara felt her hands tremble, her heart racing. Time was slipping. And in that moment, she realized, there might be a third path. A way to break the keeper's hold entirely, if she could find the courage to defy the rules of the blood moon itself. But to do that, she would have to step into the heart of the curse. Elara's mind raced. The heart of the veil tree pulsed like a living thing, the whispers rising to a fevered pitch. Find the root, break the cycle, free the bound. The keeper's form darkened, its shadows stretching like tendrils across the forest floor. The hollow void where its face should have been seemed to devour the very light around it. Enough, it snarled. Your time is over. The ground trembled. Roots burst from the soil, twisting toward Elara and Kael like skeletal hands. Elara! Kael shouted, trying to pull her back, but the roots coiled around his ankles, dragging him toward the tree. No! Elara cried, lunging forward, but the keeper's shadow blocked her path, the air turning cold and heavy. Elara, Kael gasped, struggling. Go! Don't let it take you to. But Elara's gaze stayed fixed on the tree's core. She could feel it, a thread of power binding everything together, running deep into the earth. If she could follow it. She closed her eyes, letting the whispers guide her. The world seemed to slow, the blood moon's pulsing light beating in time with her own heartbeat. And then, she felt it. A faint hum beneath her feet. A pulse. A secret hidden beneath the veil tree's roots. Elara! Elara, the voices whispered, softer now, almost pleading. She dropped to her knees, placing her hands on the earth, and whispered back. Show me. The ground shivered. The roots recoiled, just slightly. A small crack appeared at the base of the tree, a thin red glow spilling out. Elara, no, the keeper howled, its shadow surging forward. But Elara moved fast, grabbing a sharp rock from the ground, she drove it into the crack. The earth groaned, the tree shuddered violently, and the glow brightened. The keeper let out a piercing shriek, its form distorting, the shadows swirling wildly. You dare defy the binding, it roared. Elara gritted her teeth, driving the rock deeper. I won't let you take another soul. With a sudden burst of energy, the ground split open, revealing a small, glowing object nestled deep within the tree's roots, a black stone etched with ancient runes, pulsing with dark light. Kael cried out as the roots loosened around him. The whispers surged in Elara's ears, stronger than ever. The heart, break the heart. Elara reached for the stone, her fingers trembling as the shadows swirled around it like living snakes. But the keeper's voice thundered, shaking the very air. Touch it, and you will become part of the tree. Forever. Elara hesitated, the choice before her burning like fire. Was she ready to risk everything, to end the curse once and for all? Elara's breath came in ragged gasps. Her fingers hovered over the black stone, the runes pulsing like a heartbeat, slow, ancient, and steady. The keeper's shadow coiled tighter, its voice a hiss of fury and dread. Touch it, and you will never leave. The curse will consume you. Kael struggled to his feet, voice hoarse. Elara, don't. We'll find another way, there has to be another way. But deep down, Elara knew. There was no other way. The whispers in the roots, the trapped souls in the veil tree, the moon's burning glow, it all pointed here. The stone of binding, the heart of the curse. The source of the keeper's power. Her hand trembled, her skin prickling as the shadows licked at her fingers, whispering promises of eternal hunger and forgotten pain. Elara, the voices in the tree murmured. We are waiting, free us, or join us. The blood moon flickered in the sky, dimming and pulsing, as if caught in its own struggle. Elara closed her eyes for a heartbeat, feeling Kael's presence behind her, the weight of her family's history, the pain of generations trapped by the curse. Then she opened her eyes. No more. With a fierce cry, she grabbed the stone of binding. A shockwave blasted outward, sending Kael tumbling backward and tearing at the keeper's form. The ground cracked, the tree groaned, and the whispers turned to screams, not of pain, but of release. The shadows recoiled, swirling like smoke caught in a storm. The keeper's form twisted, flickering between solid and ethereal, its voice rising in a howl of fury. You cannot break the cycle. The moon demands its price. Elara's hands burned as the stone's power coursed through her, visions crashing into her mind. She saw the first promise, long ago, a woman under the blood moon, weeping over a dying child, whispering, "Take me instead." She saw the keeper born from that moment, a thing forged from desperation and sorrow, feeding on every promise since. Elara's tears fell freely now, the weight of it all overwhelming. I see you, she whispered to the keeper. I see what you are. And with all her strength, she raised the stone high, the runes blazing, and slammed it down onto the roots of the veil tree. The earth shook. The blood moon flared, then flickered, and began to fade. The keeper let out a final, desperate shriek, its shadow shredding like torn fabric in the wind. And as the tree split open, a flood of ghostly forms, the trapped souls, burst forth, rising into the night sky, their voices crying out in freedom, fading into the stars. Elara fell to her knees, breathless, the stone crumbling to dust in her hands. The veil tree, now hollow, stood silent. The forest stilled. Kael rushed to her side, helping her up, his eyes wide with shock and awe. Elara, you did it. But as the last traces of the blood moon's light faded, Elara felt something deep inside, a shiver. A presence. The keeper was gone. Or so it seemed. But the whispers. They weren't entirely silent. Not yet. The night had fallen into an eerie, unnatural stillness. The veil tree, once a towering, pulsing heart of the curse, now stood hollow, its bark cracked and lifeless. The blood moon had faded from the sky, replaced by a quiet, star-scattered darkness. but Elara knew better than to feel relief. The whispers were gone, or at least quieter. Faint echoes still lingered in the corners of her mind, like embers refusing to die out. Kael sat beside her, clutching his arm where the roots had burned him. His voice shook when he spoke. "Is it over?" Elara stared at the tree, its hollow core still faintly glowing with a dying red light. I don't know." Her hands ached from the shock of holding the stone of binding. She could still feel its weight, its pulse, like the memory of a phantom limb. The keeper was gone, wasn't it? And yet, deep in the cracked earth beneath the veil tree, a tremor stirred. A soft, slow heartbeat. Almost imperceptible, but there. Elara's stomach twisted. The cycle had been broken, but at what cost? Suddenly, a figure appeared at the edge of the clearing. An old woman, wrapped in tattered grey shawls, her face lined like weathered bark. Her eyes gleamed faintly in the moonlight, reflecting the last embers of the curse. "You've done what no other has dared," she rasped, her voice dry as leaves. "But breaking the cycle is not the same as ending it." Elara's heart skipped. "Who are you?" The woman smiled faintly, revealing teeth too sharp, too long. "I am the one who watched. The one who remembers." Kael rose, his voice sharp. "If we freed the souls, isn't it over?" The woman tilted her head, the wind tugging at her shawls like they had a life of their own. "The keeper was the tree's guardian, but also its prisoner. The blood moon's hunger remains." Elara's breath hitched. "Then what do we do?" The woman's eyes sparkled, and for a moment, she looked almost pleased. "You must find the source. The first promise. That is where the true heart lies. Until it is severed, the curse will always find a way back." The first promise. Elara felt the weight of the task settle on her shoulders. The battle wasn't over. It had only begun. The woman's voice softened, almost a whisper. "You have little time. The blood moon will rise again, sooner than you think." And with that, the woman faded, literally, into the mist, her form dissolving like smoke. Elara stood in the clearing, the broken tree before her, the night heavy around them, and whispered. "Then we'll finish this. All of it." But as she turned, Kael's eyes widened. "Elara, your arm." She looked down, where the stone's glow had once been in her hands, a faint, pulsing mark now bloomed on her skin, black and red like a fresh brand. The keeper was gone. But something had marked her. And the blood moon would rise again. The mark on Elara's arm burned like a brand, throbbing in time with her heartbeat, and with something older, deeper, pulsing beneath her skin. Kael watched her with a mix of fear and determination. "We need to find this source. The first promise she spoke of." Elara nodded, despite the ache in her muscles and the weight settling on her shoulders. "If we don't, the blood moon will rise again, and the cycle will start anew." But where to begin? The old woman's words echoed in her mind. "The first promise is where the true heart lies." Elara recalled the ancient stories her grandmother had whispered by the fire, tales of a forgotten village deep in the mountains, a place where the blood moon had first revealed its power. They gathered what little they could carry, a small bundle of herbs for healing, a knife carved from bone, and a worn map, half torn but with a faint, red ink marking a location named Lunaris. As they stepped beyond the forest's edge, the air grew colder, the shadows longer. The journey ahead was treacherous. The path to the first promise would test everything they had, courage, resolve, and the strength of the promises they had made. And deep inside, Elara felt the keeper's presence, waiting, watching, bound to the curse she had begun to unravel but not yet undone. The blood moon had faded tonight, but the night itself held secrets still lurking in the dark. Elara and Kael said quietly as they walked, "Whatever happens, we face it together." She nodded, gripping his hand tightly. Because the fate of their family, and maybe the world itself, depended on the promises they kept. The road to Lunaris was winding and wild, swallowed by creeping mists and ancient, gnarled trees whose branches twisted like clawed fingers reaching for the sky. Elara and Kael pressed on, the weight of the cursed mark heavy on Elara's arm. The forest around them whispered, half-forgotten voices, secrets buried in the earth. As the sun dipped low, the faint outline of a ruined village emerged through the fog, Lunaris. But it was unlike any village Elara had imagined. Houses lay in ruins, their timbers charred black, windows shattered, streets cracked and overgrown with thorny vines. A cold wind swept through the empty lanes, carrying a faint scent, like burning leaves and old sorrow. Elara and Kael whispered, "This place, it feels like time stopped here." Elara's gaze caught a weathered wooden sign, half buried in moss, etched with a faded warning. "Break not the promises of the blood moon, lest the fate of all be sealed." Their footsteps echoed as they ventured deeper into the heart of Lunaris, where a crumbling chapel stood, its doors hanging open like a silent scream. Inside, the air was thick with dust and something darker, an energy that prickled at Elara's skin. At the altar lay a shattered mirror, fractured into 1,000 glinting shards, each reflecting flickers of memories not their own. Elara knelt beside it, feeling the pull of the curse more intensely than ever. "The first promise, it must be here," she murmured. Suddenly, a shadow moved in the corner of the room, a flicker of movement, too fast to be human. Kael reached for his knife, but Elara held up a hand. "Wait." A voice, soft and haunting, whispered from the shadows. "Who dares disturb the fate woven beneath the blood moon?" The air thickened, and from the darkness stepped a figure cloaked in silver, eyes glowing faintly like twin stars. "Elara." "Kael, your journey has only begun," the figure said, voice echoing like the wind through the trees. "The first promise is not just a place, but a choice, a sacrifice waiting in the shadows of your past." Elara's heart thundered. The blood moon's secrets were darker, more twisted than she had ever imagined. And the price of breaking the curse might be more than she was willing to pay. The cloaked figure stepped forward, the faint glow of the eyes illuminating an ancient, weathered face framed by silver hair. "I am the Silver Guardian," the figure said solemnly. "Bound by oath to protect the first promise, the origin of the curse, and the only key to breaking it forever." Elara swallowed hard, the weight of the journey pressing down on her like the thick night air. "So, the first promise isn't just a place." "No," the Guardian replied, voice like the wind through dry leaves. "It is a pact made long ago, a promise so powerful that it shaped the fate of your bloodline, and the shadow that haunts you now." Kael stepped closer, eyes sharp. "What kind of promise?" The Guardian's gaze softened. "Long before your time, an ancestor of yours made a bargain beneath the blood moon, to save a life, to protect a family, at a terrible cost. That promise wove the threads of the curse, binding all who came after." Elara's heart pounded. The mark on her arm flared red, as if answering the Guardian's words. "How do we undo it?" The Guardian lifted a hand, revealing a pendant glowing with soft blue light. "This is the shard of the first promise. It contains the essence of that ancient pact, the power to undo the curse, but only if you are willing to pay the price." Elara and Kael said, "What price?" The Guardian's eyes pierced theirs both. "Redemption demands sacrifice." To break the curse, one must offer what they hold most dear. The blood moon watches. It demands a promise fulfilled, or a life in return. Elara looked down at the mark on her arm, the binding brand of the curse itself. Her voice was steady, but her soul trembled. I'm ready. Whatever it takes. The Silver Guardian nodded slowly. Then prepare yourself. The blood moon will rise again soon, and with it, the fate of all will be decided. Outside, the wind howled through the ruins of Lunaris, carrying the promise of a night that could change everything, or claim everything in return. Days passed in a blur of whispered plans and restless nights. Elara and Kael remained in Lunaris, guided by the Silver Guardian's wisdom and the heavy weight of the mark burning on Elara's arm. The village, once a place of sorrow and ruin, now felt like a crucible, a forge where fate itself was being shaped. The blood moon would rise again soon. As night fell on the eve of the cursed moon's return, the Guardian led them to a hidden chamber beneath the chapel, an ancient sanctuary lined with runes glowing faintly blue. This is where the shard must be awakened, the Guardian explained. And where your promise will be tested. Elara took the glowing pendant in her hands, feeling its cold pulse sync with the burning mark on her arm. Outside, the sky began to darken, the stars swallowed by a creeping red haze. Kael took her hand, voice low but fierce. We face this together, Elara. No matter what. The first rays of the blood moon pierced the night sky, bathing the ruined village in an eerie crimson light. The air shimmered, heavy with ancient power, as Elara raised the shard high. Her voice, steady but full of determination, spoke the words the Silver Guardian had taught her, the words of the original promise made long ago, the binding oath of sacrifice and hope. The runes on the walls blazed to life. The blood moon's light poured into the chamber, igniting the shard's power. But as the magic surged, so too did the shadows, the lingering remnants of the Keeper's curse, clawing at the edges of reality. Elara felt the price of her promise press down, a pool deep within her heart, demanding what she held most dear. And in that moment, the blood moon's true test began. The chamber thrummed with raw, ancient power, the shard pulsing like a heartbeat in Elara's hands. Kael squeezed her hand, eyes fierce and unwavering. We're here. Whatever happens. Elara nodded, swallowing the fear that clawed at her throat. The blood moon hung low in the sky, its red light flooding the chamber through cracks in the stone ceiling. Suddenly, the air grew cold, unnatural, biting cold, and the shadows twisted and coalesced into shapes. Figures from the past, memories woven into darkness, ancestors who had made the promises, victims of the curse, echoes of the Keeper's rage. They surrounded Elara, voices rising in a chorus, whispers of regret, sorrow, warning. The Silver Guardian stepped forward, chanting in the ancient tongue, weaving a spell of protection and power. Elara lifted the shard high, her voice steady as she spoke the final vow, the promise that could shatter the curse or bind her forever. I offer my heart, my soul, my very being. For the lives lost, the futures stolen. I break the chains of the blood moon's curse. A searing light exploded from the shard, engulfing the chamber in blinding radiance. Elara felt herself pulled between worlds, the past and the future, life and death, sacrifice and redemption. Kael's voice echoed in her mind, a lifeline through the storm. Hold on, Elara. We're not done yet. And then. Silence. When the light faded, Elara stood alone. The shadows were gone. The chamber was still. The mark on her arm had vanished. But in her hand, the shard was cracked, its power spent. She had broken the curse. But the cost. Elara didn't yet know. The chamber was quiet, bathed now in soft moonlight rather than the harsh blood-red glow. Elara's breath came slowly, the weight of the moment settling deep in her chest. Kael stepped forward, eyes searching hers. "It's over, isn't it?" She looked at her arm, bare, unmarked. The curse was gone. "Yes," Elara whispered. "The curse is broken." But outside, the forest still held its secrets. The night air felt different, freer, lighter, yet beneath it all, an echo of something unresolved. The Silver Guardian had vanished with the last pulse of the shard's light. Elara and Kael made their way back through Lunaris, the ruins no longer haunting, but hopeful, as if the village itself was beginning to heal. Yet Elara couldn't shake the feeling that the price she paid was still unfolding, hidden beneath the calm. As dawn broke, casting pale light over the land, Elara vowed to protect the promises she'd made, and to watch for any sign the blood moon might return. For some promises, she knew, are never truly gone. Days after the curse's breaking, Elara and Kael returned home, but the world they knew seemed different, shadows lingering just at the edge of vision, whispers carried on the wind, memories too vivid to be mere dreams. Elara's arm remained unmarked, but her heart was heavy with a new burden, an unease she couldn't shake. Late one night, under the faint glow of a waning moon, Elara found a message carved into the bark of the ancient oak outside her window. "The blood moon's promise never dies. Watch the horizon." Kael found her there, pale and trembling. "They're warning us. The curse may be broken, but the threat isn't over." Elara clenched her fists, determination hardening like steel. "If the blood moon still casts its shadow, then we'll stand ready. Together." As the night deepened, distant howls echoed through the valley, reminders that the darkness they faced was older and fiercer than any promise made. The battle for their fate was far from finished. The days grew shorter, and the nights colder. Elara and Kael sensed the shift in the air, a gathering storm beneath the quiet surface of their world. The blood moon's curse might have been broken, but its shadow had not vanished. Whispers of dark figures moving through the forest reached their ears. Villagers spoke of eerie lights and chilling cries after midnight. One night, as the wind howled like a beast, a dark silhouette appeared at Elara's door, a messenger cloaked in shadows, eyes glowing faintly red. "You carry the blood of the first promise," the figure hissed. "But the curse has one last reckoning to demand." Elara stood tall, her gaze fierce. "We're ready." Kael stepped beside her, hand on the hilt of his knife. "Whatever it is, we face it together." The messenger vanished as swiftly as it had appeared, leaving behind a single, black feather, a sign of the ancient darkness awakening once more. The final battle was coming. And this time, the fate of not just their family, but the entire world, hung in the balance. The black feather burned cold in Elara's palm, a chilling reminder that the past was far from silent. That night, under a silver-grey sky, Elara and Kael returned to the old library where the village's oldest records lay hidden beneath dust and shadow. Pages yellowed with age whispered forgotten truths, ancient rites, broken promises, and the origin of the curse's darkness. Elara Kael said, voice low but urgent, "The curse wasn't just a punishment. It was a warning." A tale emerged of a betrayal, one so deep it shattered the balance between light and dark, binding the blood moon's fate to theirs forever. And in the margins of the ancient text, a final prophecy. When the blood moon rises thrice, the last promise will be made. And with it, either salvation or destruction. Elara's heart tightened. "We don't have much time." Outside, the wind carried a distant howl, the prelude to the coming storm. The blood moon was rising once more, brighter, fiercer, bleeding red across the night sky. Elara and Kael stood at the edge of the ancient stone circle where the curse had first been born. The air crackled with raw magic, the weight of countless promises made and broken, pressing down like thunder. Elara Kael said, voice steady but filled with urgency, "This is it. The last chance to end it all." She nodded, the shard, now fragile but still glowing faintly, clutched tightly in her hand. From the shadows, the silver guardian appeared once more, eyes full of sorrow and hope. To break the curse, the last promise must be made, not out of fear, but love. Elara took a deep breath and stepped forward, voice clear and strong. "I promise to protect those I love, to break the cycle of pain, and to choose hope over fear." The blood moon pulsed, light swirling around her like a storm. In that moment, Elara's heart opened, a beacon of pure, unyielding light piercing the darkness. The curse shattered. The night air warmed, the shadows retreating like a tide pulling back from the shore. Kael reached for her hand, and together, they watched as the blood moon faded, its power finally undone. The first light of dawn brushed the horizon, soft and golden, washing away the deep crimson of the blood moon's curse. Elara and Kael stood hand in hand, the air around them calm and warm for the first time in what felt like an eternity. The village of Lunaris seemed to breathe again, flowers blossomed where ash had fallen, and the songs of birds returned to fill the morning. Elara looked to Kael, a gentle smile touching her lips. "The promises we made, they weren't just curses. They were lessons, about love, sacrifice, and hope." Kael nodded. "And now, the future is ours to write." From the depths of the forest, the silver guardian's voice echoed softly on the breeze. "May your hearts remain strong, and your promises true. The blood moon's shadow has passed, for now." As the sun rose higher, Elara felt the mark on her arm was truly gone, replaced by a quiet strength that would guide her for all her days. She turned to the world ahead, a world unbound by fear, ready to be shaped by new promises, forged in light. Dear listener, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this magical tale, please like, share, and subscribe. Good night.